From First Paw Media, sponsored by Dream Chaser Leadership in Anchorage, Alaska. This is the Peak Experience Podcast. Here we talk about leadership, team building, strategic management, and organizational development. Visit our website, peakexp.org. Now, here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Peak Experience Podcast, and I am joined by a returning guest. Her name is Dr. Latoya Skinner. She is calling in from Cary, North Carolina. Latoya, how's it going today?
It's going great, Robert. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I want to be first to say on the podcast, congratulations on finishing your degree. I'm sure it feels very good to get over that hurdle.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I am thankful for that journey, but also thankful that it is over.
For sure, and I'm looking forward to myself reaching that goal here in just a couple of weeks as we record this podcast. So let's jump right into this. I know you were a previous guest on the show, but for folks that are new to the show or this is their first time listening, can you tell us briefly who you are and what you're all about, please?
Sure. My name is Dr. Latoya Skinner. I currently reside in Cary, North Carolina. I am originally from Norfolk, Virginia, which I am super excited to be on this show. And a little bit about me, I am a recent graduate of Liberty University's Doctoral program in strategic leadership, and I currently work in nonprofit management. And prior to that, I worked in public education in Virginia Beach City Public Schools for 11 years. And I come from a really big family, a very loving family, very supportive family. And I am super excited for where I am in my journey right now.
Well, again, congrats on that. And for folks listening, we're going to do things a little bit different. Typically, I am the one just asking questions and basing my answers off of what our guest says, but we're going to do a true co-host format for this. We're going to do a series of podcasts with Latoya about our doctoral journey and the pieces that it takes to get there, at least through our experience in a professional degree program, our DSL at Liberty. So for folks that know me, you know that I've been hosting this podcast for a long time. I have taught people, coached people, been part of the entrepreneurial journey for many years for many folks on the experiential realm as well as other aspects of business leadership. And I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is the academic journey. So we're going to jump into this asking Latoya question number one first. We have 6 questions, and that is a personal journey question. So Latoya, can you share your personal journey in selecting your research topic for your doctorate project, and what were the key factors that influenced your decision?
Yes, that is a great starting place for us, Robert, and I appreciate you asking. My research topic, to give you a little bit of background, was ineffective communication and understanding the interruption of poor communication between leaders and employers and nonprofit organizations. And as I stated in my intro, I worked in public school for 11 years prior to moving to North Carolina and starting to work and navigate in the space of nonprofit management. Before beginning to work in nonprofit management, I actually had done some volunteering through various organizations in my local area back at home in Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And they were really good experiences. So I never thought that I would actually move into that space of working every day from 9 to 5 in that spectrum. So moving into nonprofit management was a challenge, and I noticed that there were a lot of communication gaps. So with the communication gaps that I experienced in nonprofit organizations, I noticed that because the organizations were smaller, they were more relaxed, that sometimes that contributed to a lack of understanding and a lack of communication. And so that was really interesting to me because it wasn't just an issue in one organization, but quite a few that I'd experienced.
Okay, very good. So on my side, my personal journey is a little interesting. I have been self-employed my entire life. I've never had a job where I've collected a paycheck. So I've always had that idea of if I can't make it happen, it probably is not going to happen. And my research topic was on transgenerational succession in the family firm, focusing on an emerging female leader. And what that means is here you have a company that is getting ready to move to the next chapter. Say it's a mom and pop business, and they have a son or daughter in the wings, and the daughter is interested in taking over the family firm at some point. And I'm a little biased with this, as we do have a family business and we do have a daughter that is thinking about at some point in the near future of taking over the family company, and my wife Michelle and I at some point riding off into the sunset. I don't know if that will happen, but that's at least the process of what we're thinking about. So I went into this thinking, how can I use this research or this research topic to not only help and inform others, in particular the organization that I used for the study, but also how I could learn through this process on setting up a successful succession plan for our own business. So it was a little bit a personal project as well as a project to help others along the way. And I tell you what, Latoya, I learned so much going through this process, and we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up soon. But in my research decision, my research topic decision, I had to figure out a way of using the tools that I already had, the knowledge, the experience, all that goes into being a small business owner, and applying those on a level that could become academic. And I thought about that for a long time. How could, this little company really strive to go to the next level using academic literature that goes back to the 1930s when leadership was really a burgeoning topic. So that's where we stand on that. And I was really excited to jump into that. So are you ready for question number 2? You talked a little bit about gaps a second ago. Are you ready?
I am, and thank you for sharing about your topic. I feel a connection, and I hope that we get a chance to dive more into that before we end today.
For sure. Okay, so number 2, how do you recommend identifying gaps in your existing research that could lead to a compelling dissertation or doctorate project topic? And what strategies have you found to be effective?
Oh, that's a great question. The gaps that I noticed in my research was that there was very little information or research already performed on this subject matter. And I cannot attest to why that is, because communication is something that we do every day. But I think the beast of nonprofits is different. And because I was trying to correlate it to how it contributes to employees, whether they stay or go, is a contributing factor. I know for myself, it was something that I experienced. It was something that came off as a turnoff for the organization to me, and it made me not want to stay. As you know, volunteers are heavily relied upon in nonprofits, and so perception is everything. And so allowing me to dig deeper into exploring those gaps was very helpful, not just to myself, but also I think to the research world as a whole when it comes to nonprofits and communication aspects, because again, nonprofits are starting to emerge. They're popping up left and right. And so there's many more than there used to be a long time ago. And so it's really an important topic. And so understanding where those variables were was really important to me, because this is also something that I'm connected to and impacted by every single day, because this is the nature of my work.
Well, thank you for sharing that, for sure. Yeah, it is a struggle to try to identify those gaps and to figure out how those pieces can fit. On my end, I found it very interesting because there has been very little research done on a female successor, especially in a very small family firm. There's been lots of research done on succession. There's been a lot of research done on succession on the male side, that is almost a given in family business
Mm-hmm.
succession, with the male taking over, the son or the uncle or somebody in that more male role. And unfortunately, there just hasn't been a lot of research done on the emerging female. And I thought that that was a very compelling argument to bring up. Some of the other gaps that we dealt with, and I know that you are very familiar with this because you did your work on a nonprofit up here in Alaska, even though you are in North Carolina. We are very locked in terms of geography, and geography plays a huge role with the ability for small businesses, especially small family businesses, to be able to scale and to make changes that are detrimental on the outcome of a family business. So geography played a huge role, and it was a huge gap in the research and in the literature on our end. Another big gap that I came across was finding relevant literature that met the standards, or at least the guidelines or the constraints that we had at our university with recent literature. We had a 5-year research barrier, and that was tough, especially on family business literature, because unfortunately we were dead in the middle of a pandemic when we started this program, and there wasn't a lot of research being done on family firms and family firm succession during those a year or two that we were going through a pandemic. So that was a big struggle and a big gap in terms of literature for sure. And I guess, how did I find strategies that made those effective? Of course, being an entrepreneur, I just went about my way of trying to figure out how I could use the things that were the struggles and make them into a positive outcome. And I think I did that pretty well. I found a firm that was willing to work with me and met all of the parameters. And of course, I argued quite a bit about that 5-year deal, and thankfully I had a chair that went to bat for me very quickly, and we're going to talk about that in just a second in terms of collaboration. But without that, I think those effective strategies would be a little bit different. Are you ready for the next one, Latoya?
I absolutely am.
Okay, so number 3 of 6 is about balancing interest and feasibility. So the question is, how do you balance your personal interest with the feasibility of your research topic? And are there any specific research criteria you considered to ensure its manageability?
Yeah, so what I wanted with my research was for it to be relatable and not just a lot of big words that people could not understand or take away from it. And so I wanted it to be really impactful and useful in the workplace of nonprofits. And one of the things that I wanted was to use people who were impacted every day in this organization, and that was the volunteers. This organization has over 100 volunteers that come in weekly, daily, monthly to offer their services and their time. And so I thought it was very necessary to include those people. And those volunteers included people who were doing the work on the sales floor of this organization, as well as those in leadership, those who were identified as members of the board of directors, or those in supervisory positions, because those were the people who ultimately were making the decisions. And so I felt like creating these groups of people was going to be very important to the research work that I was doing. Again, just me having a personal connection and seeing the inner workings and the strategy of a nonprofit and how they're set up, that was extremely important for me to make that connection. And I just couldn't imagine having anyone else participate in the research and being as dynamic as the volunteers, those who were providing their services, as well as those in leadership and making the decisions that they were for the organization.
Well, thank you for sharing that. As I mentioned earlier, Latoya, I was truly in the trenches with this project from day one, since I was trying to figure out how I could use this research to help me along on our own family business journey. So I think interest was a given in ours. Feasibility was a double-edged sword because, as I said, there was so little research on this topic when I went into it. It was difficult to figure out the path to find not only an organization that was willing to work with me, but also being able to meet the parameters that we had, the IRB parameters and the study parameters and all that went with it made feasibility a little bit more difficult. But I found very quickly when I started networking, finding that organization fell into place pretty quickly and it became much more manageable. I know that you and I have a colleague in our program. His name is Dr. Alex Negron. He was on the podcast with us as well. And he said that his interest and feasibility were entirely different than what you and I said. He literally did nothing except his work in his doctorate program for a couple of years. He didn't take any vacations. He didn't take any time off. He didn't do anything except solely focus on his degree. And I think that can become almost unmanageable, and I'm sure you would agree.
I do. And the reason that I say that is because life happens to us all, and you have to create balance. And so I think that's really important, is being able to create balance in your life so that way you don't become negatively impacted by something that you're working toward that's supposed to be a goal. And so for me, I operate differently. I believe in taking breaks to regroup, regather, recharge your battery. So I don't know that I could have functioned like that, but if it worked for Dr. Alex, then I'm glad that it did. And some people work really well under pressure that way. I tend to do the opposite.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. And we talked offline, Alex and I, and he said, thankfully it is done, but he probably would not do it that way again. He needed to find that balance. And I think it is sort of that trial and error process to trying to figure out what works and how that interest, whether it's the doctorate program or your research or whatever, and how that can fit into that overall life plan, if you will. Let's move on to question number 4. It's about feedback and collaboration. We talked a little bit about how important that was. So the question is, Latoya, what role did your advisors or peers play in helping you refine your research topic, and how important is collaboration in this process?
This is such a great question because this piggybacks off of my sarcasm of love towards 785 when I first started in that course and trying to develop a topic and having such a hard time, because I really had a hard time developing a topic. I believe it took me about 6 attempts in order to develop my topic. And every time I got connected to a topic, submitted it, it was kicked back to me. And so I at that point, I became really defeated. But once the instructor from 785 and I developed the topic that I ended up going with, by the time I started working directly with my chair, I already had my topic developed. And so it was go time from there to just start working on task number 1. So my chair did not help me develop my topic, but when I say that I feel like I had the best chair that Liberty had to offer me, that I personally stand by that 1,000% because he supported me fully through the entire journey. And I hope that you and others have a supportive chair that is doing the same. I heard you say earlier that your chair went to bat for you over your references and the years that we were required to be within, which was that 5-year threshold. And so having a supportive chair is definitely the key to being successful in this program.
And before I answer, Latoya, what about peers, people outside of the academic realm, whether they be family, colleagues? How did they help or potentially hinder your progress in this research journey?
Absolutely. So I have a few cousins who also have earned their doctorate or PhDs at other institutions, and they were very supportive in offering me advice, offering me encouragement, and reminding me on those hard days that just to continue to keep going because it is very easy when you get defeated to want to give up. But being able to stay the course and being reminded that there are others who went before you and accomplished the same thing that you're working toward. So just a reminder that this too shall pass, that this moment can't last forever. So I'm very thankful for them, as well as my friends and my other family who provided that same encouragement, and just basically serving as cheerleaders along the way. And I remember in my immediate family, with my siblings and my mom, just reminding them that this is not just for me, this is for us. So that was what my motivating factor and my motivating force was them, and so it kept me going the entire time.
I love that, and it is so important to have that. Not only that cheering crowd with you, that family and friends, but also those people that truly are a part of the process. So, in terms of me, I started my doctorate already knowing what I was going to write about. As I said earlier in the show, it was something that I was very determined to try to figure out. So every paper that I possibly could write in those early courses, I wrote about family business or succession or leadership or whatever. So I was always building on the latest topic. And as I began to refine that, I remember one of those courses that we had, Latoya, where it's sort of like a pregame, preseason game to the process. I think it was a research course or something like that. And I really, what was it?
Research concept?
Yes, research concept, sort of like that pregame process to this. And I remember when I went through that process and I really honed in on this topic, I was sort of off to the races there. And much like you in that development course, what they call 785 in our program, I really honed down on the process and worked out well. And when I entered into the project phase, I was so thankful to get the chair that I had. And she and I immediately bonded. We started doing text messages for every task, and we did the occasional Zoom call and all of those sort of things. And I really built up a really good relationship with her through that process. And I think that was just so important because she did go to bat with me several times, not only on that 5-year deal that we have, but also the struggles of the IRB process. I remember I was in northern Minnesota later this past summer, and I was really struggling getting approval with that. And she fired off email after email to get that process along, and that was so helpful along the way. So I'm very thankful for that. In terms of peers, I had an excellent mentor. His name is Dr. Richard Weaver. I met him through a connection that I have with his wife on Facebook. And she said, "Hey, you should contact my husband, who is not on Facebook." And we got together. We talked about my project. He has a PhD in organizational management from a couple of decades ago. So he's been out of the academic realm for quite a while, but we started meeting with each other every single week on Friday nights on Zoom for over 2 years. And we would just get together. We would talk about the doctorate project and, is this right? Is this wrong? How does this look? It was like having a coach in your back pocket. And I think that was so helpful to me. I will be indebted to him forever. And then lastly, my wife, Michelle, my goodness, I could not do this without her. She read every single paper that I did. She read every single paper I did aloud so we could hear how the syntax sounded and how the grammar sounded. And I would sit next to her here at the table and we would say, nope, change that word to and or if or but or whatever. That is so invaluable, like you said, when you had people that are truly part of the journey. So definitely a good process to have. So are you ready for number 5? We have a couple left.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this one is all about adaptability. So research topics can evolve over time. How did your research topic change, if at all, from the initial idea to your final dissertation or, that final manuscript? And if so, what prompted those changes?
That's a great question. I think fortunately for me, mine did not change. And I don't think that even with the direction of the research, it needed to change. And so I'm very thankful that it did not, because it allowed everything to continue to be streamlined and stay relevant, stay on topic and subject matter. So I could not see the need for any changes, and the research didn't lead me in the direction of needing to change it. So I was really grateful for that.
And mine changed actually quite a bit. My initial topic was the transgenerational succession in the family firm in the tourism industry. And up here in Alaska, we have literally two seasons. We have tourist season and winter. And when you're dealing with that and you're dealing with the parameters of a project like this, you have to figure out what season those fall in. And I was dead set on being in that tourism industry spectrum. And with the struggles of IRB, it just was not working out. And I knew that the tourist season ended right around Labor Day. And I remember writing to my chair and I said, hey, if this is not done, I'm going to lose the opportunity to do a organization in the tourist industry. And we quickly tried to pivot, and it did not work out. So I had to change very quickly to a different type of organization. Ended up working in the service industry instead of the tourism industry, but thankfully it worked out. But yeah, you have to be fluid, you have to be adaptable, because you never know when life or academia is going to throw you a curveball.
Absolutely. Flexibility is key in this game of research.
Okay, here we go. Last question, Latoya. It's all about long-term vision. How important is it to consider the long-term implications of your research topic when choosing it? And how do you envision your work contributing to your field in the future?
Great question. I feel like my work will contribute to nonprofit management, nonprofit organizations as a whole, just in being a key reminder that communication is very important, not just communication or the ability to communicate, but purposeful communication, and ensuring that those impacted by communication streamlines in your organization will be able to understand and garner what you're trying to tell them, what you're trying to say, because again, they're using this information to implement day-to-day operations and helping the organization be successful. So for me, that was my vision, that was the goal, and I accomplished that. And the organization that I actually worked with, they're implementing a lot of the things that I recommended through the research, and just being mindful, because I think a lot of times, because again, nonprofit organizations are sometimes more laid back or relaxed, that it's often it's a barrier sometimes that they operate that way, and it's not intentional. It just becomes the hustle and bustle of the day to day. And so I think the research that I created or that I've done and conducted will be impactful in helping those organizations that identify as nonprofits to hone in on their communication skills, and just make sure that everyone who is being touched by their communication is able to take away something from it.
I am exactly on that same page as you are, Latoya. I made sure when I picked that organization that I would be able to give back to them in some way. And I know that was part of the goal, I guess, of our project, is be able to give something where they could apply it. And what I did with the family firm that I worked with is, after we did all the data collection and the analysis and all that, I came up with a 15-step plan for the things that they were struggling with, how they could implement them. And it has become almost a coaching type program for them. And I look forward to presenting this topic to them sometime early in the year, and providing them with that coaching opportunity to hopefully help them on the struggles that they have with transitioning their family business from the mother. It's a sole proprietor, the mother is the owner to the two daughters that are coming up. So I'm looking forward to being able to offer that contribution to them. Otherwise, hopefully, our work continues to help and inspire other students in our program. And by doing this podcast, hopefully it reaches somebody that is struggling along the way. I know a lot of people have read my blog posts over the last few years about my struggles in this program, and they reach out to me all the time and say, hey, thank you for doing that. I look forward to continuing reading. So we're out there to serve others, and I think that it's working out well. Do you agree, Latoya?
1000%, I agree.
For sure. So, guys, we are just about out of time. Latoya, how can folks connect with you? What is the best place? Are you active on social? If so, where? And where can people go to find out more, ask questions, or whatever?
Yes, I'm active on all socials and LinkedIn as my name. And I'm also available through email at lskinner5@liberty.edu.
Very good. And you can find me just about on all socials as well. Just search for my name, Robert Forto, and that is Forto. And Latoya and I will be back to talk about our next segment in this series. We're looking forward to collaborating with that. So definitely stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening, and you will never miss an episode. Latoya, hang on just a second as we close. Otherwise, on behalf of my co-host, Dr. Latoya Skinner, this is Robert Forto for the Peak Experience Podcast. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
From First Paw Media, this is the Peak Experience Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You will find a link in our episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art and see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too.